and then you're fucking setting sail, then what?
Thinking, holy shit, what have I done?
Yeah.
No, so you set off, and again, it's almost the first day of an ocean road, like the first time you have sex. A lot going on.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Last 3 seconds.
Terrifying. It's everything happens so fast, and then before you know it, you're getting your head down. But yeah, that pushed off from Portugal, and first challenge was, so believe it or not, and everyone, you can Google this. So there was a pod of orcas that patrol the south of Portugal and the south of Spain, and they'd been attacking small boats to the point where Spain actually put a ban on them in the summer of 2021.
What, ban on whales or ban on boats?
Ban on boats. So I'm rowing. And the first thing I'm like, oh my God, it's actually happening. You know, minuscule chance. And I see this big orca coming towards me. I'm like, holy shit.
Welcome to the Hard to Kill podcast, the official podcast of the Hard to Kill program, the world's leading program for driven individuals looking to gain direction and momentum, where we aim to break down the complex, multifaceted and holistic factors of human performance and optimization. Both on the program and on this podcast, we will be discussing and excavating everything pertaining to psychological resilience, physical robustness, and leading by example with discipline and tenacity to create a culture of winning, especially in the turbulent, frenetic, and high-tempo world of the ambitious individual. This is Marc, the creator, senior DS, and head coach of the Hard to Kill program. Let's get stuck straight into it.
So on today's episode of the Hard to Kill podcast, we welcome our first guest to this studio, Mr. Jack Jarvis. Oh, you know what? I'll let you introduce yourself, mate, rather than build up the pressure and come off. I'll let you introduce yourself, mate.
Yeah. No, so yes. Hi, my name is Jack Jarvis, part of the directing staff in the Hard to Kill program. And probably what I'm most well known for is I was the first person to row from mainland Europe to mainland North America. Done a few other challenge, but that's probably the biggest one, 111 days solo unsupported. So yeah, that's me in 5 seconds.
And that's very much what we want to talk about today is the rowing effort and everything you've learned as a result of that. Not that you haven't got some cool bits to spin about being in the Hard to Kill and what that's like as well. But yeah, largely we want to kind of talk about that because I found it fucking fascinating. And I know a lot of other people will as a result of that. So we'll start at the beginning, mate. Like, where did you even get the idea to set a fucking world record?
Good question. You've probably got to go all the way back to when I was a young lad, like from as early as 5.
Yeah.
I remember saying to my mum, I'm going to climb Mount Everest one day.
Yeah.
And she was like, Jack, shut up. But that sense of adventure's always been in me.
Yeah. Always
loved it. Always, I used to just dream about these mad expeditions. Christmas Columbus. So I remember imagine discovering someone new. I love the idea of being an explorer.
Yeah.
So that was put to bed, school, and then joined the army. So that adventurous side. And then always loved the idea of being a Guinness World Record holder. And then how the row came about was 2017, maybe the start of 2018. My friend Duncan Roy, we served together in the army. He came back to our unit having just completed a 4-man row. And it sounded epic. I mean, for all the wrong reasons, won't mind me saying this, his first crossing was how not to row an ocean. They had all power failure, their rudder broke, their wheels seized up. So for the last 800 nautical miles, they were arms only. And he gave back and he gave me this brief. And instead of putting me off, I was like, that is incredible. That's exactly the kind of journey I want. And they actually set out to go mainland Europe to mainland South America. And they did that, but because of all their problems, they had to stop in the Canary Islands, stop in Cape Verde, and then go across.
So it avoids the attempt, basically.
Well, no, actually, it avoided that attempt, but because they were the first group of 4 to go from Cape Verde because no one in the ocean would ever do that out of choice. They didn't get their original record, but they got
still set a record. Yeah.
So that's sort of where it came about. And then leading on from that, I deployed on a hurricane and disaster relief deployment for 6 months in the Caribbean, which was awesome because there were no hurricanes.
Yeah. Just say awesome for you, not for the people who's got their fucking house whipped up.
Yeah. That's why I say it was awesome. Yeah. They were absolutely destroyed. No, it was awesome because there was no hurricane. And that meant our workload was light, a lot of R&R. And then off the back of that, started planning, which was 2 years, and then on the December 21, that's when I pushed off from Portugal, mate.
Yeah.
And then 111 days. I'm sure we'll talk about the planning and the row itself. But yeah, that's how it all came about, really.
Yeah, 100%. Because you've obviously spoken about this already exclusively to members of the Hard to Kill Brotherhood, and it was a fantastic talk, and that's why we're here now. As I think there's so many people in the wider world who could value from that. But talk about the planning phase and talk about all the things that went wrong.
Yeah, really, really tough.
Yeah,
the planning phase and the preparation. They have a saying, and I don't think it's chat at all. I think it's very true. The hardest part of rowing an ocean is getting to the start line. And I spoke to a guy who's running the length of Africa. He said the same thing. These big expeditions, that can be a real difficulty.
Yeah.
So when you start, you are literally, I was a guy with an idea, Mark. No corporate experience of raising money. I was literally going round. I had a sponsorship deck I'd made on paint, and it looked that way. It honestly looked like
a word art across the top.
Yeah, I think an orangutan with a handful of crayons could have probably made a better sponsorship deck. So I had this, and I'm going round, and I'm getting nowhere. I mean, and this is why I want to shout out. You know, a lot of my best mate Connor Wolf, first guy to back me. You know, he was like, "I'll sponsor you £300." You know, just a regular guy. So I go around, and I got a bit of money together. You know, and I'm really grateful. And I was going. What else was I doing? I was going into meetings with companies that I knew were probably going to say no, because you are literally, hi, I want to become the first person in the world in history to row from mainland Europe to mainland North America. Well, have you got a boat? No. What rowing experience have you got? None. So you weren't even a river rower? No. Yeah, good one, mate.
Yeah.
So, it was tough, but like I said, persistence beats resistance. It would have been so easy for me to just quit and just say, oh, it can't be done. But then I would have proved all the people who doubted me.
Yeah.
Correct? So and I was swimming. I did my my longest swim, 3K, and I was in the pool on Sunday, completely alone. I remember thinking, I could just quit now and no one would know. And it was that. And obviously, I did the 3K swim, went reasonably well, and it was the same. Well, I didn't drown, so I would say very well. Yeah. So I did. So I kept persevering, and then that perseverance was rewarded. I'd got a bit of money together. I mean, I'd ran a marathon up Pendle Hill, and the reason I ran this marathon up Pendle Hill was to fundraise. But that in itself doesn't sound that interesting, does it, Mark? Marathon up Pendle Hill. So what I actually did was I carried a rowing machine, and it took 9 hours. And the reason I did that is because I had no experience with the corporate side. I wasn't really getting much traction, but I thought, right, what am I good at? You know, getting my nut down and grinding hard, and like really pushing myself. I'm a stubborn. Maybe some say determined, tenacious. Well, pick one of the three. So I did that. That got a lot of exposure, which then gave me got about £6,000. So I had about maybe 20 grand that I'd managed to. I was running raffles. I was doing all sorts just to try and make it a reality. And then a friend of my dad's who he served with when they were both in the military messaged me, and he was like, "Jack, I found out about this row. Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Sean, you weren't the first person that popped to mind. One of my dad's friend who he served with over 20 years ago, and I've seen probably 3 times. He's like, oh, shut up, mate. Right, how much do you need?" Very connected guy. We managed to get the boat, and then once you got the boat, that was about 40 grand. And once you got that, you've got a bit more money, and you can start. You look a bit more credible, and so it's just to be persistent and never. You might think, because I'd often get asked, oh, why don't my nan come out with a cracker? Sorry, Grandma, if you're listening to this, Jack, why don't you phone Amazon? And I was just like,
hello, Jeff. Is that Jeff?
Yeah. Hold on, let me just speed though. Yeah. Customer said, no, I don't want you on minimum wage. I need Jeff. All right.
Yeah, get your checkbook out, mate.
Yeah, exactly. So I raised £85,000. Yeah. To buy the boat, fill it with food, safety equipment, driving it to Portugal. So all these things, and a massive shout out to my sponsors. I can't name them all, but they're absolutely incredible. And although what I did was a solo effort, it's like we say, no man is an island. Yeah, 100%. I had a great team behind me, and if anyone's trying or wants to do anything like this, I'd 100% recommend it. But never pigeonhole yourself to Red Bull or I don't know. Red Bull. Okay, I couldn't think of another one off the top of my head. I had Finch Bakery, which is a bakery in Clitheroe, a small town in the Ribble Valley, sponsor me a very generous amount. So it's just persistence.
Did they fill your boat with pastries? That's what
they actually didn't. That's my one bone to pick. And they didn't get me any pastries and brownies for the finish.
But what's the fucking point? Yeah.
Well, the cold hard cash was pretty good. So you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, fair one. So we've got as far as okay, we understand like this drive and determination to explore, which a lot of people have. And what you actually said kind of rung true with this societal truth, which is most kids at age 5 want to be a fucking space cowboy or an astronaut or an adventurer. Then it gets to kind of school and that kind of gets kicked out of you a little bit. And it's like, well, I'll be happy to be a doctor or a lawyer now. Then you get to secondary school and that gets fully murdered out of you. And you're like, well, I'll just be happy to pay the bills. And then you've obviously been like, oh, you know what, fuck that. Like, I'm going to push back on that. And even though you've been in the military for what, like 10 years at that point?
10
years, like, which is obviously, a lot of people do get institutionalized in that, and that's not inherently a bad thing because they're a cog in a bigger wheel and they serve a purpose. You still had the, I guess, the enterprising spirit to be like, well, no, I still want to do those things that were important to me when I was a kid. Not enough people have the courage to do that, like do the things that actually they really got excited by when they were a fucking kid. And you went out and you began to make that happen. So from that point then, you've got your boat, it's full of fucking bickies. Well, it's actually not, as you'll tell us in a moment. It's the deficit of bickies. It's a bicky dry zone. It's over in Portugal. Talk to us about the emotions when you were starting, mate.
I actually haven't really shared this with anyone. No one's really asked me that question. But so to mentally prepare myself, I used to just say out loud in the mirror every day. It sounded a bit Chad, but I'd go, Jack, this is one of the toughest thing you've ever done in your life. So I knew. So and what? Not that I've had any mindset, because people, did you do any mindset coaching? I said, no, like I didn't. I just thought, right, what could help me? And my thinking was, if I get out there and it is horrifically hard, I can say to myself, Jack, you knew it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
So had a leaving party, which was absolutely fantastic. All the boys over at the time, brilliant evening. Had everyone back to my grandma's as well, so it was up to the early hours.
Brews all around.
Yeah. She was actually in America, so we had to me and a few of the boys had to do a clean up in the morning. So we did that, and then the night before I left, I stayed around my mum and dad's house. So obviously, gave my mum a hug in the night. Went to bed, a little bit emotional. Anyway, woke up in the morning and hugged my mum, and I'm all right. My mum starts crying, and it's not, I'm extremely close with my mum and my dad and my stepdad. Very lucky, extremely lucky. So yeah, gave my mum a hug. She starts crying. I'm like, fucking hell, mum, stop. You're gonna send me.
It's cutting onions in here. Fucking hell.
Yeah. And I was the early ferry from Portsmouth.
Yeah.
So about 6:30, my little brother, classic 19-year-old, 18-year-old. Doesn't surface, doesn't know there's 6 o'clocks in the day, bless him. And he was like, he just sort of waves me over, and he gives me a hug. He's laying in bed. He's like, good luck, mate. I'm so proud to be your brother. And I was like, all right, cool. So I'm still holding it together at this point. So I get in the Land Rover Discovery, which I got from Jardine Motors. Very generous, blown away. That was awesome. And I get on the ferry. It's pulling away. My phone's got a few texts. And bear in mind, I'm still not going to go for probably another 5. I can't remember off the top of my head now. It's a year ago in 10 days. And my little brother sends me a text, mate, and it says, sorry, I couldn't give you a proper goodbye today. But I just want you to know I feel myself well enough now. Yeah. I'm so proud of you. And like, it's an honor to call you my brother. Yeah. I love you so much. And we don't have that relationship with, I love him, and I'm sure I know he loves me. But we're not,
Very few blokes do. Even within a family, have the ability to kind of say it like that.
Yeah, and when he said that, I was like, it just opened. I was crying, and I've got a picture on my phone of my face. I took a selfie then, because I think it's very important, because I would say I'm tough mentally, tough physically, and I don't feel you should, be the victim at all. If you're not happy with how things are in your life, you can do something to change that. I really do believe that, but on the flip side of that, I think it's absolutely fine to show emotion.
I actually think it's part of it.
Yeah.
Because if you're not registering and accepting emotions and you're just pretending everything's fine, you're not actually going to allow yourself to feel the pain required for the motivation to do something about it. If you're like, this is fine while the house is on fire around you, it's not fine, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, and I never wanted to, because whenever I speak to people, I say, look, although I can be laser focused, I'm extremely tough, extremely determined, and I can row the Atlantic solo. I have emotions, I have self-doubts like everyone, and I don't want people to put me on this pedestal, because if they put me up there, they think, and they're down here, they don't think they can achieve that. And I said, I'm nothing special. I'm not like this. I wasn't an Olympic rower. I was just a normal guy. So yeah, I'm very emotional. Got a grip of myself, got myself into the all-you-can-eat buffet breakfast. And so yeah, drove down to Portugal, and then again, I was into work mode. I had the boat to set up, and what actually I found out is a Spanish guy. I can't remember his name. It'll come back to me, but I found out 2 days, my boat's not even in the water yet, because we're still doing our pre-road checks. He's setting off from a port just down the road to try and do the same thing. So I was like in this mindset, all I've got to do is finish, not in a race like the Talisker, but all of a sudden now that's been flipped on its head. And I remember saying to my weather router, my girlfriend was due to fly out, and I said, right, Emily, don't bother coming. We're launching the boat tonight and we're going. And my weather router was like, Jack, chill out. You've better prepped, you're in a better position physically. My boat was heavier, so it's not as fast. However, it's probably going to look after me a bit
sturdier.
Bit sturdier. So yeah, that was another emotion I had to deal with, this sudden, I was like, God, if I can't beat him, I won't get the record. And then moving on from that, girlfriend come over, and again, I was all right. She left. And then the last emotion I remember, I phoned my mum, and we were setting off in the morning, 2 a.m, go out with the tide. And my mum said, I was like, you're right, mum, off tomorrow. And she always started crying. I was like, not again. So I'm like, managed to control it. And I think the last conversation I had was my best mate, Connor. And I was like, "You're right, mate." He was like, "You're right, mate. Oh, I'm so chuffed for you, buddy. Like, you're gonna smash it." And I was like, "How you doing?" He spoke to mum. I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you think I'm being selfish?" And he went, "Nah, of course you're not." And I said, "Just." Like that. I was like, I feel like I'm being selfish, mate. And just don't know. Anyway, I said, "Oh, you're right." I couldn't even look at it again. I didn't want to let him see me cry. Yeah. I was like, "Right, mate, I got to go." And he texted me straight away. He's like, "Mate, you ain't being selfish. You raised money for your granddad, raised money for a great charity." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And then it was like, boom. Yeah. That alarm went off at 2 a.m. It was game time. And then didn't really get sort of homesick or anything like that.
Well, yeah, the stress is in the gaps in it. So like when it's game on, it's game on.
Yeah.
It's the anticipation of that where you start to shit the bed. And what you said about being selfish is really interesting, because I've recently recorded a podcast talking about being selfish and this negative connotation we have with it. Well, we all want to avoid being self-centered or self-absorbed, but I don't perceive for a moment it's selfish to pursue your dream, your vision, your ambition you've had since you're 5 years old.
Could not agree more, mate.
It's actually, because in doing so, you're raising money for other people. You're raising the bar of if you want to go as far as for humanity in saying this is what can be done and I'm going to be the first person to do it. That's the inverse of selfish. It's actually like massively selfless. It's just it required a sacrifice from you in that moment.
Interesting to get your thoughts on this, right? So I totally agree with you. Now, my grandma, maybe, and I know it comes from a place of love. She loves me, she cares about me. But do you not think it's incredibly selfish for her to say, "Oh, Jack, don't do that"? And because I always think, so I'm just going to go get a normal job in, go work in a bank somewhere. Not there's anything wrong with that, and never go out and pursue what excites me, what I really am passionate about. Just because of, obviously I don't want anything, but I understand the risks. But you don't want me to do that just in case something happens to me. So you're...
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And it's not, although it's your specific circumstance talking about here, it happens an awful lot. A lot of people, they're doing it with what they perceive to be that person's best interests at heart. But ultimately, without slagging your granny off, she didn't actually know what's in your best interest at heart at that moment, because what was in your best interest was going and living the dream and doing that. And ultimately, it's not for anybody to say, even you, like what's going to happen. You can only do what you believe to be right, and then what will be will be. You're only responsible for the input effort, and the outcome will be what it is. There's so many variables you can't control. Now, she wants to protect you and she wants to see you safe. And then also we've got to play into societal or maybe more generational belief systems. Like if you go back 60 years, when maybe your grandma was in the workforce, that was the belief system, is that you leave school 16, you get into a corporation, a company whereby you're safe, quote unquote, you do your 50 years, then you get your golden handshake, and that's you done, and maybe you get a Rolex when you finish, and that's the epitome of a successful individual. Whereas we now live in an age where we've got laptops and we can make money from anywhere in the world. If we want to learn how to do something, we can pay someone from anywhere in the world to figure out how to do it. The world's a much smaller place. It's a much arguably more dangerous, well, it's an uncertain place, but it's a safer place from that perspective because of the technology we've got and all that sort of stuff. So she's just maybe placing her beliefs on you, not because she doesn't want you to excel or to be happy, but because she just wants you to be safe, and she only knows what she knows in that moment. And obviously, I don't know what you do know, I've studied NLP for quite a long time. People are always doing the best they can with the resources they have available, and that helps you to really get to quickly get to a place of empathy, because you're like, well, that's the resources she has, that's her understanding of the world, that's the emotional availability she has, and she's doing the best that she can with those tools to try and make me safe. And it's like, I love you for who you are. I don't dislike you for what you're not. I appreciate the sentiment. I'm gonna fucking do it anyway. That's pretty much.
That was pretty much it. And
yeah.
I daren't tell her about a few of the other things I've got planned that we've spoke about, but I see it all the time as well. People, and then it works the other way. People use that as an excuse.
Well,
maybe if they're not, especially in our line of work, when we speak to people, and they're like, "Oh, I can't do that. The missus won't allow it." Yeah. No, mate. Yeah. I could have easily gone, I'll wait until my grandma's maybe. Yeah. Not.
I mean, you see it again a lot.
And they just use it as a crux. When really,
the heart wasn't in it. Yeah, the heart wasn't. And I've done a podcast before. Again, it'll be releasing soon about guilt. I'm plugging my own podcast on a podcast about guilt and what guilt actually is, because that's what they're experiencing in the moment. They're feeling a degree of guilt, and guilt is actually, if we break it down from a psychological lens, is just a set of self-conscious emotions that we perceive we've done something wrong. So then we try and behave in a certain way to change that. So you've got to zoom out and say, well, have you actually done anything wrong for putting yourself, your mental and physical well-being, your happiness, health and emotions first? Is that wrong?
Absolutely not.
Of course it's not.
Because if I hadn't have done that because of my grandma, what do you think our relationship would have been like?
Well, yeah, like you're sat around the Christmas table and she's cooked and she's like, oh, you're right, Jack, and you're like, fuck off.
Yeah, just in the back of your head, like,
this turkey shit.
Yeah, it wouldn't though. She's a great cook.
Yeah,
but
I'm
no,
sure she is.
it's true. It's true. If you don't do something, and my ex really summed it up well. You know, really good girl. Someone asked her about it. So, what do you feel about it? Well, she was like, "It's his dream. Like, who am I to say he can't do that?"
Yeah.
And she said, and if I did say that, he would break up with me, and he'd do it anyway, like
Yeah.
you said. So
yeah, and my missus got that same understanding, and she kind of inherited a set of operating instructions for me from my parents of like, yeah, if you try and tell him that he shouldn't do that, he will just fuck you off. Like, he'll just do it anyway. So you like,
sometimes that makes it sweet, or when someone tells you not to do something.
And for me, it wasn't attractive them telling me not to do it. It's just I really wanted to do it, and I'm like, why should I not? Because you said. And I appreciate we think maybe differently, but a lot of guys that we speak to feel that exact same way. But ultimately, you had the awareness in the moment to realize what your grandmother was saying was maybe not the truth, and it was just a belief system. Doesn't mean it's less valid. Doesn't mean it doesn't come from a place of love. A lot of people haven't surrounded themselves with people who have encouraged them to have that degree of awareness. It's like what you're thinking, what you believe, isn't true. It's just the filters that you've absorbed from how you spend your time and with whom you spend your time. And that's not a personal attack. That's just being really honest about it. And obviously, if we want to grow, we've got to be really aware of these belief systems and how we filter and distort the world around us. And, people are scared. Like, it's okay to be scared. I get scared about a lot of things. I'm sure you did too.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Like I spoke earlier, I don't want anyone to think I'm this, unbreakable mindset guy that's, looks fear in that looks danger in the face and laughs. There were times on that boat, mate. Yeah. And there are times of self-doubt, and you're like, Jesus, am I going to make this out alive? I mean, obviously I did, because I'm sat here. And I think another just last thing sort of on, when people said, no, I couldn't do it. I had no doubt that I would do it. I was 100% certain I would make it to the other side. I mean, people could call that arrogance, overconfidence, because of my lack of seamanship knowledge. But I backed my boat, I backed my training, believed in myself. So when people would say, oh, it's dangerous, I'm going to make it, I said, don't you worry, mate. I'm going to be fine. We'll see you at the finish.
Confidence is the integral ingredient in mental toughness. And the problem is, I could go down a rabbit hole with this, so I'll just skim over the top. But people perceive confidence to be what they see on social media, which is the guy who's fucking ripped up and got loads of muscle and like really muscular, or the chick who's got fucking fake cans.
Look at my Instagram.
Yeah, mate. Whammy. And then like all these chicks that have got fucking fake cans with this sort of stuff. And that's not to say they're bad people. Maybe for them that's what confidence looks and feels like. More often than not, it's trying to get external validation, which they use anything they're good enough. Whereas if you are inherently confident, you're able to A, express emotions, and B, have radical acceptance. So when you're looking in the mirror and you're saying this is the hardest thing you're ever going to do, you're just being really honest. You're not like, oh, I'll be all right, I'm just going to crack on, I'll just fucking. So no, I'm being really honest. It's going to be hard, you're going to struggle, you're supposed to. It's a world record. Yeah. And when you have that degree of it, like, I'm not a natural born runner if you can't fucking tell, but in prep for MDS, a lot of my runs have been really hard and I've been hurting. I'm like, I'm hurting. You're supposed to. You're fucking running 30 miles, Marc.
It's supposed to be hard. And if it was easy, everyone would fucking
If it's easy, I wouldn't have, and neither would you have the inclination to want to do that. Yeah.
100%.
So you get on the boat then, and you've overcome like the challenging lumping throat conversations with all the family members and friends, stuff like that. And then you're fucking setting sail. Then what?
Thinking, holy shit, what have I done?
Yeah.
No, so you set off, and again, it's almost the first day of an ocean row is like the first time you have sex. A lot going on.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Last 3 seconds.
Terrifying. It's everything happens so fast, and then before you know it, you're getting your head down. But that pushed off from Portugal, and first challenge was, so believe it or not, and everyone, you can Google this. So there is a pod of orcas that patrol the south of Portugal and the south of Spain, and they'd been attacking small boats to the point where Spain actually put a ban on them in the summer of 2021.
Ban on whales or ban on boats?
Ban on boats. Ban on small boats being around the coast, because they were basically biting the rods off. So I'm rowing, and first thing I'm like, oh my God, it's actually happening. Minuscule chance. And I see this big orca coming towards me. I'm like, holy shit. Turns out it's just a plastic bag. So I survived my plastic bag attack, and then we're going out, and I managed to navigate the shipping lanes. Real sort of punchy stuff. Those shipping lanes are about, I think, maybe 35 miles wide, and the lanes themselves are about 6 nautical miles. So if you're rowing at 3 knots, which is a good pace, that's going to take you 2 hours.
2 hours to get across each lane.
Each lane, yeah.
So that's like basically trying to leopard crawl across the M6.
Yeah, 100%. So anyway, I've leopard crawled across the M6 at peak rush hour, and I've made it. And that first 5 days, it is tough. You are getting used to that isolationism. I remember the first day I couldn't sit in the cabin. You get in the cabin, you're rocking around. I'm absolutely juiced up to the eyeballs with seasickness tablets, and still I couldn't sit in the cabin. My hands are sore. The calluses haven't formed yet. My back is hanging out. My bum is chafed. I've got some really nice photos that you've actually seen.
Yeah.
And you're just like that, and you're thinking, holy shit. Your first day was great, 50 miles. Second day was about 25. And you almost get into your own head then. You're like, right, if the next 10 days are 25-mile days, it's going to take me this long. I've only got this amount of food. So you've really got to just focus, dial in. And that's what I did, get on. But it's weird, quitting was never in my mindset, Mark. And I put that down to a few things, but just the way I am, that determined, stubborn, tenacious individual. But I told too many people about it.
So you had that degree of accountability.
100%. But I know to everyone, my best friend, all my friends, the people that sponsored me, members of the 250 Club, the charity, I couldn't... in my mind, I was like, Jack, if you have to quit, and unless it's not catastrophic, how can you go back to your hometown? That was in my mindset. So you power through them. And once you get through that 5 days, it's mad how incredible the human body is. It just adapts. You get used to being on your own. Your arse stops hurting. Your hands just callous up. Your back, even though I was rowing, first week I was rowing, and that might have been something to do with that. I started rowing 15 hours a day, broken into shifts. But at the end of the first 5 days, I took it down to 14 hours because I was on the oars for that last hour, and I was just a floating shirt. I was there, mate, but I was adding no effect. So what I did is I subtracted an hour, 14 hours a day, and that just made me so much more productive, and I was a lot fresher when I woke up. So and you just get used to it, and then you're in it then, mate. And then it was just like, right, 5 days down, 85 to go. Well, what I thought would be 85, it ended up taking 111.
So there's a couple of things you said there, and this is why I'm really interested in having these kind of conversations with guys like yourself, because often whenever you speak to peak performers and people who have achieved exceptional things, not saying you didn't know what you were doing, but you're demonstrating skills that then scientists are talking about and psychologists are trying to break down, and arguably the Hard to Kill program is trying to then replicate in the lives of other people. The first one you spoke about was segmenting, and there's a great quote that I heard quite some time ago when I first got into ultra endurance running, which is run the mile you're in, because
I like it.
It's fucking really easy to think, fucking I've got so far to go and I'm hanging out now, and if I stick at this pace I'm going to be hanging out for the next fucking 100 days. Forget about it. You got to break it down and literally just run the mile you're in. Some miles are really hard and you're like, well, it's not going to last forever. Other miles will fly by and you're like, that's mega. Enjoy it for what it is. Know that isn't going to last forever. Expect it's going to get hard again. So that was the first thing, and segmenting is a really, really powerful skill, because it's basically, you can drive a whole journey at night with your headlights on, right? Even though you don't know what's over there in the darkness, you know what's in front of your headlight, so just focus on that fucker and just keep that moving forward, and eventually you'll arrive at the destination.
I used to do that all the time. I used to, we get to the end of this week, you know, when I was on like maybe Wednesday, I'd be like, all right, my weeks would, I say reset, but I would do my update on a Friday. So that was like my main update. So I'd break it down. But then it come down, right, we just got finished today. It's tough. Then you just got to finish this 4.5 hour shift. And then sometimes I'd be like, right, so every 20 minutes, after the first, every 20 minutes I'd have a sip of water. And then after the first hour, I'd have a sip of water and a bit of food. Quarter of a chocky bar. And I'd be like, right, let's just get to the next 20 minutes. So that huge 111-day journey, sometimes I was breaking down into 20-minute chunks.
Sometimes even like with my experience of running, it can be, you get to that fucking get to that rocky outcrop, just get to there and then you can hang out for a minute and you can go again. And then the interesting thing you said is almost counterintuitive to a lot of people, which is you made a decision when you weren't making the pace to do less, because it's a very commonly held societal belief that you should do more. Like, and that's a problem for a lot of people when they look at productivity in the workplace. Even they're like, well, I need to work longer hours. Hold on, how effective are you being in the 8 hours that you got? You're only working 2 hours because you're on Instagram for that. You're on fucking throwing yourself around the fucking toilet for that. You're doing all these other different things, and your work when we get over checking emails, having needless conversations, scrolling Instagram is like 2 hours a day. So how about we actually work less but increase the potency? And that's exactly the decision you made. Like, right, rather than 15 hours, but the last hour's dog shit, that can be delegated off to recoverability, and I'll just work harder for the time I have got. And it was more effective.
Hit the nail on the head, Mark. And it was amazing how much, and maybe it was because my body was starting to adapt, and then it started to adapt and I took that hour away. But literally, I remember thinking, I was like, all I was doing for that last hour was clock watching. Tapping away at the water, and I was just like, you know, maybe sliding away, going into bed 5 minutes early, and I just thought, no, let's be real about this. And just take an hour off, and like you said, productivity was much improved, and I just wake up and I was up straight away, scran on the oars. So
people forget that productivity is a two-way equation. It's not just more input equals more output. Like if you can have the same input with less time, your output is actually doubled or like improved. So like whatever 1 hour as a percent of 15 is you actually, productivity is increased by that percent. You're doing less but getting the exact same fucking output. So your productivity increases. Across the course of the road then, mate, what were the give us one highlight and one real challenge.
So on March 13th 2022, I saw a shark, and that was incredible. All the wildlife was incredible. Because again, it goes down to people like, how do you stay so positive? Well, for a start, I volunteered to be there, Mark, and I worked bloody hard to get there. So if I was just sat around, oh, this is crap. And I think a lot of people maybe do that now. I'm not going to name names. Yeah. But they want to make their achievement look better. So they're like, oh, it's so hard. And don't get me wrong, it was hard. Yeah. But I volunteered to be there, mate. Yeah. Yeah. I was forced to put guns in my head. I was raising money for people with brain tumours. Of course,
you can't really fucking moan.
Yeah, you can't fucking moan. So the wildlife was all incredible. And what I mean, the reason it was such a... Actually, I've got to be truthful with you, and I'll tell you after I've told you the story. So the wildlife, how many people have seen dolphins, whales, sharks, marlins, big, dolphin fish in the wild, in the middle of the Atlantic, when you're closer to the International Space Station than I was to land? For a large part, for a large part of that row. And so I'm rowing, I see this fin, and again, it sounds, you think big seas, and there were big seas, and there were days when there was no wind and all these, but it's very mundane ocean rowing, 14 hours a day, you're just grinding away. So to see that shark, I was like, wow. And then, because I'd seen that fin before, and their fins are very different to dolphins, whales. Yeah. So I managed to jump in, get the GoPro, put the GoPro on the water, and it was getting pretty close, and I was able to look at the footage afterwards, and it was just such a highlight, and such an incredible moment, and it really put a smile on my face. So that was one highlight, but I've got to be truthful with you. Probably the second, well, definitely, okay, shark first.
Joint first, yeah.
Yeah, joint first would be when you get your fat head down and you wake up in the morning and you've gone 10 miles in the right direction.
What, it just happened to a fucking coast, like drifted the right way?
Yeah, because I'd have to rest for sort of 4.5, 5 hours. Yeah. You have to as a solo rower. I mean, people talk about doing, 40 minutes, but I just don't know if that is achievable. I mean, on a sailing boat, maybe, because you're getting that assistance from the wind, you're not on the oars, but you have to rest. If the weather was with you, you'd be like, yeah, it's going to be a good night. You got to get right down, wake up 10 miles in the right direction. I mean, not directly on your course, but there or thereabouts. But the flip side of that coin, sometimes you get it wrong. You'd be like, probably be all right. Won't put the parachute anchor out. Parachute anchor is basically something, a sea anchor, holds you in place. And you maybe go back 6 miles in the wrong direction. Just wake up
absolutely fucking spewing.
You just stay positive by going, oh, well, that's a kick in the nuts. But
starting the world,
sitting here crying about it's not going to change. And I think getting on the oars is probably going to help. Yeah, start you get going in the right direction.
Like I said, you elected to be there.
Yeah. So that was the thing. So yeah, those were the biggest highlights, and all the other, and then the finish as well was incredible.
I remember way back when I was living in and around Lincoln, and I got roped in like 2 weeks' notice to do a charity run for the Grenadier Guards Foundation, because another PT I used to work with was a Gren Guard, and one of my actual eventual clients was a double below the knee amputee from a Herrick, and we were raising money for him. And the reason I hadn't initially got on board is because I was doing a photo shoot, so I've been starving my ass off.
Is this when you were bodybuilding?
Yeah, back in the day. Depleted as fuck, and he's like, I basically got peer pressure into doing it. The photo shoot was the day before a fucking this charity event, which was like a race in Lincoln, carrying a Bergen and boots and all that sort of stuff. And and I remember running along, my fake tan started to melt because it was still on from the day before. Fucking, it was all getting in my eyes. I remember being like, fuck, I can't see shit. And then Nathan was there with more kit than I was carrying, 55 pounds, on his fucking wheelchair, wheeling alongside me. And he was like, yeah, it sounds really hard, mate. And I was like, fuck.
I can't feel that.
Yeah, I was like, fucking, I don't know what we did banter about though was a lot of the course was downhill. So I was like, you fucking cheating cunt. He was just wheeling away. But yeah, in instances like that, it does really, really help to A, have a sense of humor, and B, remember that you actually, pressure is a privilege, and you elected to be there. So yeah, really, really cool. So you spoke about touching down on shore, like landing. What was that like, mate?
So I want to run you back. So talk about emotion. So the only time I really felt emotional on the ride, I mean, I broke my finger as well, pulling in the parachute. I don't know if you
I think you showed that. Yeah.
It's actually got a lot straighter than what it was. But even then, I was more annoyed rather than emotional. I was like, you idiot. Like, imagine I can't row, but I took the day off and I was able to row. So the final 36 hours, so my family have flown out in America, which had put another bit of pressure on me because I was like, right, I need to get in, otherwise they're going to have to fly home and they're going to miss me. So I woke up on the final, or what I thought would be the final day, and I start rowing. Now, for anyone who's not, a seagoer or knows too much about the currents around Florida, don't worry, I don't expect many people to. I didn't before I did this. The Straits of Florida is a current that rips at about 4 knots from south to north around the Cape of Florida. Now, my average speed for the crossing was 1.8 knots, so fast. And I was already pretty much just south of where I needed to be, West Palm Beach. So I started rowing, rowed for 4 hours, 20 minutes, and then I had a break, had a chicken chow mein. And my boat, in that time I'd stopped rowing, instead of making any progress westward, had just gone directly 2 miles north. So I remember thinking, right, to beat this current, I need to keep rowing. So I then rowed for 8 hours straight, and the current was that strong, I couldn't even put my oars underneath my legs to have a drink or a bite to eat. So I literally rowed. I probably maybe had 5 sips of water in 8 hours. And when I mean sips, I mean sips. So I've rowed, given it absolute beans. I've been doing 5 knots because of the current, and I've just not made nowhere near enough progress westward. So to the point where I was on the same latitude as West Palm Beach, but 10 miles out of the coast. So you thought when you first see land, and not first see land because I'd seen a bit of the Bahamas in 5 days before, but my finishing point, I'd be quite happy. I was really down to the point where I was like getting in my own head, not because I didn't think I'd make it, because I didn't think I'd make it in time for my family to see them. Yeah. Because again, not that many people maybe know this, but the coast of Florida is all canals that have been taken out of the mainland. So the coast of Florida isn't actually mainland North America. So if I'd have just spanked it into the beach, 110 days at this point for nothing. Yeah. That record wouldn't have counted because it's not mainland North America. So then I had to go to another inlet. So I've missed my first. I phoned Chris, my weather router, and I said, Chris, I've missed it. He goes, all right, don't worry, mate. There's another one, St. Lucie. And that's 30 miles up the coast. And I'm like, 30 miles? That's another 10 hours rowing. But again, I was like, right, focus, Jack. We need to do this. So get back on the oars. I'll probably row for another 2 hours. And I'm just I'm getting pushed further and further north, minimal progress west. And I'm like, I'm not going to make it. Because I know as well that past that, there's not another one for it. I didn't actually know exactly. And I feel I'm getting emotional now. And I remember phoning my mum because the communication wasn't good with my shore team, but maybe, I'm not going to blame them for that. Yeah. I could have maybe said something. I phoned my mum and she's like, oh, you're right. And they're all in America, Fort Lauderdale, having a few drinks, and all the boys have been playing golf. So they've been having a good time. Whereas I'm on like the bare bones of my arse here, panicking. I ain't going to make it. I was like, oh, you're right. And I said, again, choked up. I'm like, Mum, and I was so stupid. I felt like I was letting them all down, even though I just spent 110 days at sea. So and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to the St. Lucie Inlet. No, all right, don't worry, we'll go whatever time. We're not bothered. Not really understanding the sort of pressure and the elements that I'm under. But that's not their fault. So no, I get rowing again, and again, I was faced with this choice, and I was feeling really sorry for myself at this point, Mark. Really sorry. And I just thought, right, what are my options here? I'm not going to get a tow in, am I? I'm not going to call the US Coast Guard. That would be embarrassing. I'm not going to sit in the cabin and just cry. I might as well just keep rowing. And even though, again, it goes back to those meetings 2 years ago, which I was going into, and I didn't think anyone would give me a dime, but I went anyway. On the off chance that they'd give me a couple of quid. I just got on the oars and started rowing. And eventually, after about 3 hours, my bearing to waypoint started to change. So I was obviously coming underneath it. So it was to my north rather to my west. And I was like, holy shit, I'm going to make it. Instantly, this burst of energy. So I'm rowing hard. I've rowed for 10 hours. Tell Chris my plan because it's now dark and I've never seen this new inlet. I'd seen photos of the West Palm Beach one. I said, mate, what I'm going to do is anchor up. I'm going to go in the morning. Chris goes, ooh, don't know if you should do that, mate. Hey, I don't think your anchor will hold. And I remember thinking, I can't remember if I said this to him or I was like, I think I just said, yeah, well, I'm fucking doing it, mate. So if it doesn't work, I'll phone you back. And I was just like, in that moment, I was just like, keep your mouth shut, mate. Yeah. Chuck the anchor in, it held. Woke up in the morning, and everyone at this point thinks it's a slam dunk. But I wake up and there's another load of pressure now. So again, if I'd have spanked it in, I'm not in the inlet now. Record would have been null and void. There's a dredging operation going on. And I remember thinking, fucking hell, can I not just catch a break? US Coast Guard come out and said, oh, we'll help guide you in. Obviously, they can't touch me, give me a tow. But I'll make it in with probably millimeters to spare. It's probably many, many, many meters. But it felt like millimeters, make it in and just seeing everyone. And the reason I bring that story up is because people would think, oh, did you cry? But I'd had that emotional sort of release while I was on the water. And then when I made it in, I was just happy. Just relief, just relief. It was relief, but relief, joy. A lot of people doubted me and in my past for a lot of things, not just about the row. Suffered from dyslexia when I was a kid. Things on at work maybe hadn't planned out. My original plan hadn't worked out, and we can talk about that if you want. To make it in and set out to have a goal that's 2 years away and to achieve it was relief and joy and then happiness because all my friends were there. Yeah. And they were all stood in the set of my family and 30 of people and they were not talking. I said, God, someone hand me a Corona and why is no one talking to me? Let's have a good time. Yeah. Like, oh, we didn't know how you'd be. I said, I'll be absolutely fine, mate. I've been looking forward to this. And so, it was just pure, I would say euphoria, maybe. Yeah. In its purest form. But it doesn't last for long and I was just like, all right, what's the next thing?
Yeah, what's the next thing? Yeah.
What's the next thing?
Yeah, and what is, with the time we've got left, mate, what is going to be the next thing?
When does this go out? Fuck it, who cares? So I've got the Manchester Marathon and the London Marathon. Yeah. which are in April, which I'm really looking forward to. Done the London Marathon before, unofficially managed to photocopy a race number and sneak in.
You didn't know that?
Yeah. That's a story for another time.
Yeah.
But I'm doing a 24-hour swim between the piers off Bournemouth Beach, Boscombe Pier, Bournemouth Pier.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do that for 24 hours, raising money for Head Up, which is a is a charity for veterans and serving members of the British forces that are struggling with mental health.
Yeah.
Really good cause. They're setting up a retreat in Worcester. So yeah, want to raise a bit of dough for them, a bit of PR. And
when's the date of that?
29th of July.
29th of July. So that'll be peak summer on Bournemouth Beach. So it'll be worth going down and have a look. And
I expect to see your bald head covered in sun cream, though. Don't worry.
Mate, I'll be absolutely fucking mahogany post Sahara Desert, mate. I'll be fucking, like a bronze god.
Back in the bodybuilding days.
Yeah. And on that note, we'll draw it to a close. So Jack, mate, that's been, I've loved talking about that. We've taken an enormous amount away, and hopefully you, the listeners, have as well. And I'd love to hear any feedback you've got, any questions, queries, all that sort of stuff. If people want to see more on your future charity raise and stuff, if they want to get in touch to sponsor you for your charity stuff, if they want to just follow you, where's the best place to get you, mate?
So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Jack Jarvis, Instagram and Twitter, Jack Jarvis Official. That is where to follow me. Yeah, unless you're going to come to my house with Southampton, if you want to follow me in that way.
Yeah.
So you'll be seeing a lot more of me on Marc's profile as well.
Awesome. There you go, team.
Cheers, guys.